Good morning, Gator Nation, and welcome to episode 29 of the In All Kinds of Weather Forecast. This is easily one of the most frustrating episodes we've ever recorded, and obviously there's a ton of sadness, frustration, anger for many that has been going around the Gator Nation, and we're here to talk about it. We're here to mention elephants that are in the room. We're not here to just be your average happy-go-lucky Florida Gator podcast. We're going to say it like it is. And I really like that about our podcast, and we're going to keep to that theme. I am your host, Dustin Smith, and as always, we have In All Kinds of Weather lead writer and founder Neil Schulman, as well as contributor Casey Hampton. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we get to that, how are you feeling?
I'm in shock. I cannot believe what I saw last night. I mean, in a way I can. Like, we were slogging through games. We were content with mediocrity. You could see from the way we celebrated in the locker room after we slogged to a 31-19 win over a terrible Tennessee team. And we were all very vocal on this podcast about that. So I think deep down, we all knew we were eventually going to get burned. But I just didn't think it would come in this form. I thought it would happen in the form of like a 62-3 loss to Alabama or something like that. I didn't think it would come to LSU. I didn't think LSU would be the team to do it with half their team opted out in the swamp on senior night. Just absolutely despicable and embarrassing and humiliating and unacceptable, really. And, we'll get into all the details as we usually do, but that's just a taste of what's coming. I'm always a Gator in all kinds of weather, but I am embarrassed and I am disgusted right now. And I think, as Casey and Dustin can attest, that's really the kindest way I can summarize my feelings right now. Casey, how about you?
I've been a fan of this team when Will Muschamp was the coach. I've been a fan of this team when Jim McElwain was the coach. I never thought Dan Mullen would be the coach of this team, where that wasn't just a shoe that went 20 yards. That was my heart that went 20 yards down the field last night. I think Dustin and Neil can attest. It's rare that I am without words. I got nothing.
You guys know me to be a very positive, very, at least most of the time, a kind-hearted and happy-go-lucky, if you will, individual. Over the last few days, starting Saturday morning, where we'll talk about it in more detail in just a minute, but Keontae Johnson, star player for Florida basketball, collapsed with just a few minutes into the first half against FSU. Of course, Florida lost that game, but that doesn't matter. And it doesn't even matter that Keontae Johnson was the best player on the team. It could have been a walk-on that collapsed, or a manager or an assistant coach. He's, as we're recording, he's in the hospital right now in Tallahassee. He's stable in critical condition. And I just have to say that my thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. I'm not aware of the whole situation. I'm not aware of his injuries or where his state of consciousness is. And I don't need to know. All I know is that for Keontae Johnson, this is more than just a sports situation. This is a life situation. Anytime the word critical is thrown around, it's very grim. And my prayers are not that this guy is able to play basketball again, but my prayers are that he's able to live a normal life, because this is serious. That in itself makes it one of the worst days of my lifetime being a Florida Gator fan. And then on top of that, of course, we lost to FSU in basketball, and that was arguably expected, but it's still not fun to lose to FSU ever in any sport at any time. And then on top of that, and we'll talk a lot about it today, but football. The Gators had arguably their worst showing on the field since that game against Georgia Southern. And while some parts of the game look good. Overall, and as we say a lot in this show, context. Overall, this shouldn't have happened. Absolutely embarrassing. And what Marco Wilson did when the Gators still had a slim, but they still had a legitimate chance of winning the game, he literally threw the hopes and dreams, all that this team worked through, even in a COVID year. He threw it out the door with that shoe.
So Dustin,
Yep.
I know you're hurting. Neil, I know you're hurting. I'm hurting. In Gator Nation, we know everybody's hurting today. And I actually told someone I haven't hurt like this since we lost to Alabama in 2009.
Yep.
Because that was just
Yep.
we know you're hurting, and we're here to talk about it. We're here to engage with you all about it, and we're here to
Make sense of it, really.
Well, I don't know if there
I mean, try to.
I don't know. I don't know if that's possible, but we are here to remind you all, like we've done so often in this godforsaken decade of Gator football that we've had, in all kinds of weather, we all stick together. So
Yep.
let's just get to the game and analyze what we can and try and look ahead.
Well, here's what I will say, and this is, I think, a good segue from the emotional piece of it to the schematic piece of it. This game is forever a lesson for the so-called blind faithers on the team, not just the fans, but the players on the future teams. It's not always going to be fine because you won one-on-one battles with this kid 7 years ago in a DB camp. It's not going to work out in your favor every time. Just because we had a 6 beside our name, just because it was in the swamp, just because it was senior night, just because they'd beaten us last year and sang that next song and did the Gator chomp and just rubbed it in our face. No, it does. Just because it was supposed to be our payback night doesn't mean that's going to happen. You still have to go out there and play the game. And yes, I had fans who were saying this to me, saying, oh, you're not a true Gator in all kinds of weather. You got to have faith. No, you don't, because I actually watched the game and saw that this team wasn't doing the things it had to do in order to win the game. So, I mean, look, savvy football fans saw something like this coming at Vanderbilt. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw something like this coming at Vanderbilt. We said it on the pod. We all said they play like this too many more times, it's going to burn them. This is a month ago. They've been skating on thin ice since, and they stomped their feet one too many times, and they fell in, and they drowned, and they can't fix it now. I mean, the season's shot, and it's because we took our place in the top 10 for granted and didn't take our opponent seriously. So we now have an eternal teaching moment for every future team, the 2020 LSU game. That is why you take every practice, every rep in practice, and every snap on special teams, offense, defense, whatever, in every moment that you are suited up in pads seriously.
And if you beat Georgia, that's great. That was a feel good. That was an excellent win, but
not the ultimate goal.
It's not the ultimate goal. And guys, this was a rivalry game. Doesn't matter. I mean, we took it to LSU in 2016 when we went there and won. And this is the reverse of that, right? We have the goal line stand from Tigerland, and they have LSU. Like, this is it's
so let's get to our takeaways. Casey, do you want to start?
Yeah. I put on Twitter last night, just a couple of my thoughts, and, they weren't attacking anybody. And I'm going to say I do not want to fire Dan Mullen. And anybody on Twitter wanting to fire Dan Mullen right now probably needs to step back from Twitter and just take a breath. But the two thoughts that I had were, last night was not on Marco Wilson. We have to look at the coaches. Why was Marco on the field? Why was he the best player available? Why haven't they recruited someone to fill that void? Why is there such thing as senior privilege? Why hasn't he been coached to be disciplined at all times, on and off the field? And this is where questions start. And it's time for the Pollyannas the eternal optimist, you're a bad Gator if you don't follow blindly down the yellow brick road to accept things. We have a coach who we love in Dan Mullen, and he's got zero killer instinct. He could have gone for the jugular against Georgia, and he didn't. He should have had that team more ready to play in Knoxville last week, and they weren't. The fact that Tennessee was up against us at any point in that ball game was, I look back and go, that's a red flag. We have a defensive coordinator who is unable and or unwilling to coach guys on and off the field to be leaders. Marco Wilson's a senior, but Marco Wilson's a kid. I mean, I know he's an adult and I know he's a student athlete, but the responsibility, you don't see players from Alabama doing that. You don't see players from Ohio State doing that. You don't see players from Clemson doing that. You don't see players from Notre Dame doing that. If you want to be a title contender, you have to play like one. You have to act like one. And these coaches are not getting it through to players like that, to do stupid things like that, and to cost their team the game. And, yeah, we beat Georgia. But at some point, we do have to look and say, okay, if we were playing at Georgia at full strength with LeCount and the players that they had and had who was the quarterback?
JT Bennett, who's playing now.
No, well, if they had him, but no, who was the guy who opted out for them?
Jamie Newman.
If they had Jamie Newman, would we have beaten Georgia with the team that we had? And you look at the defense and the deep balls that they threw. I mean, had they had a quarterback who was competent, that would have been a game. It's concerning that we have not earned our way to Atlanta without something else happening to another team. And I realize that's part of the bargain. I get that. But we had a championship level offense with a defense that simply did not get any better as the year went on. And we kept saying, well, maybe this will be the week. They'll pull it together. It's time for the Pollyannas to realize that you can criticize a team and you can criticize something about a team while still being a good fan. It's not being a good fan to just have blind faith. It's not being a good fan to just follow marching orders and not question. And it's not being a good fan to ignore the obvious. So we are a good football team. We're not great. I mean, this team was blasted by Auburn 40-3, who just fired their coach.
48-11, but yes.
Okay.
Point is well understood.
They were blasted by Auburn, and they came in on senior night without their best players, and their players are going down left and right via injury last night. We didn't lose anybody via injury last night, and they still beat us. And it doesn't matter about Evan McPherson. This is not on him.
Agreed.
Not on him. It should not have gotten to that point. We were 23-point favorites. And at some point, it comes down to the coaches to, sorry, you didn't do your job. You, Dan Mullen, Brian Johnson, Todd Grantham, Christian Robinson, you did not do your jobs. Yep. And all I'm going to say, that better be Todd Grantham's last game at the Swamp on the home sideline. If it's not, I will come back and say what I said after Texas A&M, and I got a lot of heat on Twitter about it. Dan Mullen is going to be our Mark Richt, a solid 9-3, 10-2 coach every year. Can't get over the hump because he won't fire Todd Grantham. And that will show me he's not a championship level coach.
No, I got nothing to say in debate of any of that, except for one thing. You put the blame on the coaches for continuing to play Marco Wilson, and they should get the blame for that because there's no reason that you can't. No one with a functioning pair of eyes and even a 2% knowledge of the game of football can look at the tape he's put on and say he's the best corner we've got when Jadon Hill and Chester Kimbrough have balled out when they've gotten their chances. But that's beside the point. If you're Marco Wilson and you are on the field in that situation, you can't do that. I have since that happened, I spent whatever moments of free time I had, like when I was doing dishes in my house, when I was showering, when I was just walking around for exercise, I spent every moment of free time thinking, have I ever seen someone in an organized sporting event do anything as stupid, as mentally unstable, and as brainless as what Marco Wilson did. And I thought long and hard. I thought back to my Little League days. There was a kid in my Little League who had a temper problem. He was a good pitcher. So when he got mad and the coach came to take him out, he would take the ball and just like fling it into a lake nearby. Like, that doesn't touch this. There's nothing that's even close to being that just unbelievably careless and thoughtless and idiotic. And what really stings is I went out of my way to defend Marco on this podcast, on Twitter. I said, I've met him. He's a good dude. He means well. He wants the team to win. He wants to succeed. I can't say that anymore. I don't have the ability to say that anymore. Look at the tape. Look at what happened. The actions speak louder than words. I can defend him all I want, say he's a good kid. He's got good blood. His dad was good. His brother's good. He'll turn out okay. I can't do that now. You're a senior leader. You're not a 17-year-old kid anymore. You're supposed to be the leader of this team, and you give the game away. Yes, we should not have been in that situation. I totally get it. But we could have survived it. We could have escaped it with our national championship dreams intact. We could have gone into the Alabama game with a chance to play for a national championship where, who the hell knows, maybe Kyle Trask throws for 550 yards, has the game of his life. We wouldn't beat Alabama the majority of the times if we played them 10 times. We might beat them once or twice. Who knows? We could have made that our one. Now what do we have to play for? I don't have the words. I tweeted this out. I don't have the words to describe the illness in my bone marrow that I feel towards Marco Wilson right now. I am done. I am finished. And we got to get the young guys some playing time. He can't be out there anymore.
Yep. Nope. Like Marco Wilson, I wish you best. I don't want to see him on the field in Atlanta. I don't want to see him on the field at the bowl game. I don't want to see him there because we're being rational about this, and we all know there are Gator fans that aren't going to be rational. What are they going to be yelling at him? What are they going to be,
It's a frightening point.
I don't know if I have ever experienced a loss that put me in an emotional state where I was this morning for any sporting. I mean, look, I'm a Jaguars fan, and I put up with a bunch of BS with that. The loss to the Patriots when we were up by 10 points to almost go to the Super Bowl, I thought that was the lowest of theirs. I have never felt so emotionally gut-wrenched, gut-punched, and speechless than after last night. And on a collegiate, professional, I have never been as emotionally zapped as I was by that loss. And I think, a friend of this podcast, Chris Doring, said it best. This is the most embarrassing loss in Florida football history. And I find the lie.
I would say Georgia Southern only because of the optics of an
like
FCS
you said,
team, but
it was a corpse of a team.
Right, so that's why this is more devastating. I put devastating and embarrassing in different categories, but
this was embarrassing.
Dude, you can split hairs. This is easily a top 5 most embarrassing and humiliating.
No, this is number 1. This to me takes over Georgia Southern because we were 23-point favorites. It was senior night. We had a quarterback after Mac Jones had a day at Arkansas that could make a statement, and we literally threw the game on a shoe.
Despite all that had gone, and this is why I do blame Marco. Casey said he blames the coaches. I blame Marco because, look, everyone who plays Division I college football has a freakish amount of natural talent, and they obviously have to work to get to that point where they can utilize that talent to be a D1 athlete, right? So for 99% of the fans on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever who criticize players, they can't do what these athletes do. Okay, so to say, well, you should have been here, you should have been there, you should have been in better position, you should have high pointed the ball better, you should have read the assignment better, you probably couldn't do it any better. I can say with 1 billion% confidence, I would never, ever give a game away with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty like that. I may not be as talented as Marco Wilson. In fact, I'm not. I'm just going to say I'm not. Nor is Casey, nor is Dustin. None of us would ever even think to do anything as mind-bogglingly brainless and mentally unstable as what Marco Wilson did. And you know what? He can go on Instagram and he can post all about how they need you more than they hate you. But the truth of the matter is, Marco, this is your legacy. I'm sorry. I know.
I will never, ever, ever think of Marco Wilson without that picture of him. It's burned. You know, the two pictures, and this is really sad. The two pictures that will forever pop in my head with Marco Wilson is him reaching for the ball that's not there at Texas A&M against Weidemeyer and last night.
Chapman.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Caleb Chapman. But yeah.
Whatever.
And look, I'm sorry. I'm sure.
Who cares who the player is? That that image is in my brain. That's it.
That's a football play. The kid, I'm sure, tried his best on that. He was moving his body on that play with the intention of helping the Florida Gators. With that shoot throw,
those are the images that I have.
Sure.
That is Marco Wilson's legacy. Doesn't matter what he was doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if somebody like you is going to try to explain what was happening. Those are the two pictures. When I close my eyes, those are the two pictures that I see. Just like with Tate Casey, I will forever close my eyes and think of the jump pass. I will forever think of Antonio Callaway running down the sidelines against Tennessee. I will forever think of Tease Tabor getting burned in Neyland. And I will forever think of Marco Wilson at A&M reaching for a ball that wasn't there, but more so than anything, of him tossing a shoe last night.
Yep. That was a play that will live in infamy. But
shout out to the SEC officials who missed the LSU kicker running up and down the sidelines doing the Gator chomp.
Who cares? You don't like it, do something about it. Beat them. But we're 23-point favorites. Don't let them do that in the first place.
If you're going to call unsportsmanlike, call it fairly and evenly. Dustin has not talked. Dustin, go.
Well, I'm going to use this segment to discuss a conversation that I had with Neil toward the end of the game last night. Well,
oh boy,
during the game Saturday night, because all of my takeaways are what you've already said. I agree 100% with every word that Casey said, and I'll leave it at that for that part. So I was at the game. Events were happening in front of my eyes in real time. There's no video delay in anything that I was seeing. And from what I saw, the Gators had somewhat of a chance to win the game up until the penalty was called. The Gators had slowed LSU down and tackled the guy for, I believe, a loss on 3rd and 10.
No, it was a short pass that was complete well short of the sticks.
Okay, right. And it would have been a 4th down in LSU. They could have gone for it, but they probably would have punted.
They were up 37-34. Why would they have?
No.
It was tied. They were going to give us the ball back with 2 minutes to go. And then Marco Wilson did the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right. And that is the exact point that Florida lost the game. And I know you guys hate it when I bring out my old friend, the ESPN FPI predictor, where it gives you a percentage chance that team has to win. Florida had a decent chance. I believe they had a 60% chance to win the game before that play happened. After that play happened and the penalty was called, LSU had like an 80% chance to win. All I'm saying is that the Gators were in it, regardless of all the poor defensive calls by Todd Grantham, all the positional issues with having Marco still on the field. The turnovers by Kyle Trask, and pretty much every week we mentioned the turnovers as a key to the game. And even I mentioned, I did say that the Gators were going to blow LSU out. Even Galloway on ESPN mentioned that the game would be a blowout. And I was wrong, dead wrong. We were all wrong. And one thing I mentioned in our LSU pregame is that turnovers would be an indicator of if this game was close or not. And Florida turned over the ball 3 times. And Kyle Trask, for how great he's been all season, he had 3 inexcusable turnovers,
including a pick.
Now, obviously, the second interception was kind of a freak play, and Louisiana luck for all I can see. But at the end of the day, you can't throw the ball there. You got to get the ball into a spot where only your receiver can catch it, and Trask had been doing that the entire season until this game.
To our listeners, we are where you are as listeners. We're as dumbfounded as you are. We are not oracles. We are not licensed mental health counselors, and we don't do this professionally. And I think even if you were to ask people who do this professionally, we don't have answers for what happened last night. We don't have the magic bullet that's going to make it feel better. But we're talking about it just like you are. We just happen to be doing it over your radio and in your Spotify or Apple Music podcast or wherever you listen to it.
But let me just say this, okay? And Neil knows this, I will always have faith in my team. It won't be a blind faith. Obviously, when we had given them the ball back after we were going to hopefully receive the ball back on a punt, I mean, it's hard to even fathom what took place on that field. I'm still dumbfounded. And I mean, I have papers. I wrote down notes. I mean, you can't. Those of you that are listening can't even see the papers that I'm holding up. But the other 2 hosts can see that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. I have no explanation for what took place. But all I got to say is this. This is not a championship football team, okay? And people are like, oh, if we beat Bama, maybe we'll be in the playoff. No, this team shouldn't be in the playoff. They don't have the mental discipline. They don't have the heart. This team stinks. They had an easy schedule that inflated how good this team looks. But this team stinks, and it starts here. Go to the next one.
Look, I'm over this defense. I'm over Todd Grantham. I am over this fat slob running up and down the sidelines in his overstuffed Columbia shirts on 3rd and Grantham when we know what's happening. I'm over Emory Jones getting out there when we know it's going to be a quarterback draw. I'm over people saying, well, we lost the game because Kyle Pitts is in there. I'm over it. I'm over all of this. I'm over these people on Twitter saying, oh, just let it play out. Oh, just let Todd Grantham have another year. Oh, we've been decimated by injuries. Oh, it's COVID. No, it's just, we're not good.
We're good, but we're not great. And that's the conundrum.
Look,
we're good. We're a good team, but we're not a great one.
There's nothing to justify how and why we lost last night. There's nothing that's going to be said that can justify losing to the worst LSU football team of all time.
I will say one thing listen, at the end of the day, we were 4-8 in 13 and 4-7 in 2017. We are infuriated.
LSU better in those years than last night.
Okay, let me finish. We are infuriated, as we should be, at Marco Wilson, Todd Grantham for putting Marco Wilson out there, despite his several weeks of game tape indicating that he's not that good. We are very, very upset right now. But we are ultimately upset because of the fact that this loss was so costly. 2013, by the time we lost our 3rd game, no one cared anymore. By 2017, by the time the Georgia game came around, I mean, look, normal year you lose 42-7 to Georgia, and people are flipping cars and setting couches on fire in the street. Like that year, we didn't care. I will say, for all the anger that is going on Gator Nation right now and should be going around Gator Nation right now, at least we are in a position where we are good enough for a loss like this to sting. But, and this is a hard but here, I don't know about Dan Mullen right now. This offseason is going to tell us what we need to know about him. Is he a Mark Richt who goes 10-2, 10-3 in normal years, 8-2, you can translate roughly to being 9-3? Or is he willing to adapt and adjust the way that Nick Saban did after his first run sort of fell off after the 2019 one? In 2010, he reloaded. He said, you know what? This isn't good enough. He went out and restocked his cupboard with big-time assistants. Got him 2 national championships the next 2 years. Look at Alabama today. Totally different football program than they were in 2008, 2009, 2010. Because he adapted. He adjusted. He moved on. He evolved. Can Dan Mullen do that? We're going to find out. And if he doesn't,
Hey,
like Casey said, he's not the guy we need.
hey, Neil, I just have to say this. So when I said the team stinks, I'm not saying that they're god awful and they really should be, 0-9 or something like Vanderbilt or whatever. My big problem with Florida is they're selling the fan base, and they're really selling themselves a bag of garbage, because they act like their goal is to win a national championship. But if your goal is to win a national championship, every play must be perfect. You plan to execute every play perfectly. And if you don't, you get better the next play. That's what Alabama does. That's why Alabama is blowing everybody off the field.
That's what I said just this past week.
Because they lost last year. Okay, they didn't reach their goals last year. And you best believe that Alabama is going to win a national championship this year. There's nobody that's going to stop them, and that includes Florida. And we're not going to pick the game against Alabama until our Wednesday podcast, so you have to wait for what it is. But spoiler alert, those picks are not going to go in Florida's favor, because this is not championship football. Okay? The goal this year was evidently to beat Georgia, and that's it. That's it. They beat Georgia, they did it, and that's it. Because it seems like every single game following that Georgia game has been god-awful.
We talk about context. Of that Georgia game. The second
Yes.
half of that Georgia game was terrible.
Yes, we talk about context, okay? We've been saying it week after week after week after week, okay? Yeah, that Marco Wilson play was awful, inexcusable, but it should have never gotten there, okay? Florida left at least 24 points on the field that night, okay? At the time that Marco Wilson had any shot to throw a shoe, the Gators should have been up like 45-20, something like that, or 40, whatever. I'm not going to go down rabbit holes with numbers. But, Neil, you're absolutely right. This is not an Alabama-like team. And I'm not saying that we have to look like Alabama, but I'm saying that the consistency on the field, the week in and week out obliteration of opponents, that's what championship football looks like.
I'm going to take Dustin's point and Neil's point, and I'm going to put it in context. Dan Mullen on Todd Grantham, and I quote, "This game tonight's on the offense."
609
Let that
yards.
one sink in. Let that one sink in.
609 yards. 609 yards. 609
But
yards.
Dan Mullen, instead of when asked a question about Todd Grantham, says tonight's on the offense.
Yep.
I'm not
That's
saying
alarming.
fire Dan. I'm not saying fire Dan Mullen. I am not saying Dan Mullen needs to be fired, and anybody that's saying that right now is off the rocker. They are off the rocker as much as people thought that we could go in and beat Alabama with this. Oh, we're the Gators and we can do it, right? Both of those people are equally off the rockers. But what I am saying is my clock of doubts began ticking about Dan Mullen last night. I'm not saying that I want to fire him, but I'm with Neil that, okay, how far can this guy get us? Truly.
Well, like I said, I think for better or worse, this offseason is going to tell us the answer to that question once and for all. And there's nothing we can do about it right now. We're just stuck waiting. That's what kills me. It's the not knowing. We're not going to know for a little while. But anyway, so That's what we think. You have heard what we think. But as we make a point to say every show, we want this to be as interactive of a platform as it can possibly be. So we like to get you guys involved, and we like to read some of your comments on the air. So because this was such a crippling loss, we're going to go with a few more tweets than usual. We're going to make this a little bit longer of a segment than usual. So I am going to start off by reading 3 different tweets that stuck out to me, each one for a different reason. So the tweet that I put out on the In All Kinds of Weather Forecast account said, how are we feeling today? Best answers get featured in tomorrow's pod. So that was the prompt. First one I'm going to read is from Skylar Sweat at Smoke148824, who said, all I'm going to say is you don't see Nick Saban's players throwing shoes, and you also don't see his worst corner starting weekly. And if that is not the perfect synopsis of the game on Saturday night in the Swamp, I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect synopsis of Saturday night's game in the Swamp. That's it. You don't have guys on Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson or Georgia, for that matter. You don't have guys on Georgia doing that. And, yeah, I'm still at a loss. I still can't believe what I saw. But anyway, yeah, so Skylar Sweat hit the nail on the head with that one. Comic relief-wise, I'm going to go with 44 J. Will, my boy Jeremiah. Cracks me up with these GIFs he uses every time. It's a GIF of SpongeBob and a rainbow appears.
It's GIF. GIF.
It is not GIF. It is GIF. We have had this discussion before.
It is properly pronounced GIF.
All right, you put up a poll on your Twitter account and retweeted on the recruiting handle, and 660 people or so responded to it, and almost 3/4 of them said it was GIF. You lose. End of discussion. Let's keep going.
No, sometimes the majority of people can be wrong.
Yeah, right. That's how we elect officials in this country. The minority rules. All right. Anyway,
hence the Electoral College.
Okay. Moving on. SpongeBob has his hands in front of his eyes, and he pulls them apart like a windshield wiper. A rainbow appears, and in the rainbow, the words "I want to die" appear, because I'm not going to lie, that is kind of how I felt during various points of the game on Saturday night. I mean, obviously not literally, but like I feel that. I feel that. And big picture wise, I'm going to go with Mackenzie at MDavis1223, who says it wasn't just over a shoe. It was more than that. The play calling was not good whatsoever. Wow. You seem like a really, really overly nice person, because that is a very, very kind description of what we saw. Anyway, but let's recognize how well Copeland, Tony, and Elam did. Trask did not have his best game last night, but he did throw for 474 yards. That's my take on it. And at some point, Kyle Trask throwing for 400 and whatever yards you want to tack onto that was not going to be enough. And if this team was going to even sniff a championship, the defense was going to have to step up and win a game for him. And they didn't do it. And that is just so unbelievably, unfathomably frustrating. And this is Casey's point that I'm going to steal in response to Mackenzie here. All you need is a competent defense. You can have one unit that's clearly better than the other unit. You can have an offense that's clearly better than the defense, or vice versa, a defense that's clearly better than the offense. But when you do that, the weaker side of the ball is going to have to, at some point, win you a game where the dominant side of the ball is having an off day by their standards. 2009 Florida, the offense was mediocre at best, thanks to Steve Adazio somehow taking the greatest college football player of all time and making him into just a mediocre quarterback after he broke all kinds of records at Florida in Tim Tebow. The offense didn't do a whole lot that year. The defense carried them. That defense was loaded with Brandon Spikes, Joe Hayden, Janoris Jenkins, Major Wright, Carlos Dunlap, Jermaine Cunningham. I mean, they were just loaded. They won all the games they had to win but one that year. All the offense had to do was win the other one, and they couldn't do it. Or you can just look at a team that was successful in that fashion. Look at 2019 LSU. Their offense was far better than their defense. Their offense had an off game against Auburn. Their defense stepped up, and they won them that one game. So I happen to agree with Mackenzie that we should give props to Jacob Copeland, who caught 5 balls, I think it was, for 124 yards, 123 or something like that. I think it was 5 balls for 123 yards. Or Kadarius Toney, who caught 9 balls for 182 yards. Or Kyer Elam, who didn't get targeted a ton because Max Johnson didn't really feel like testing his luck with him. But the few times he did target him, nothing happened. He had a pass breakup, and he overthrew him a couple other times. So, Elam did his job. But unfortunately, because football is the ultimate team game, if you have 19 to 20 guys who do their jobs and 1 or 2 who don't, the whole team's going to suffer as a result. And ultimately, this game isn't going to be remembered for Toney balling out or Copeland balling out or Trask throwing for the second highest amount of yards in a single game in Gator football history. No, instead it's going to be remembered for Marco Wilson being a funny man and throwing a guy's shoe. And on a larger scale, a championship-level offense that had an off night and a less successful defense that could not do its job in the one game it really needed to and could not bail out the offense and let them down and cost the Gators a national championship. So it sucks, but, I mean, you're right. It's rough. Those guys deserve props, and saying this is, I chose your tweet as an attempt to at least get them some of the credit that they deserve, and likely now will not in the annals of Florida Gator history because of Marco Wilson's idiocy. So I like that one. That was good. So Casey had to run out for just a second. He'll be right back to read his tweets. In the meantime, Dustin, what were your tweets?
Yeah. So I'm going to go with one long one and then 2 more funny ones. From Austin, and you can follow him at IDSNATCHTHAT. This is what he said. He said, woke up to 9 degrees this morning. Sun was shining, and it's still great to be a Florida Gator. Turns out the 24/7 model was accurate, and this was an 8-2 team all along. Despite having the best quarterback in 2 decades, huge holes still remain. This fan base needed a good slice of humble pie. With that said, it was clear for weeks that this team was trending downward despite winning games. The product was sloppy and undisciplined. Winning hides much of that, but losing shines a big fat spotlight on all those glaring issues. Wow. Austin, I agree. This was an 8-2 team. Many people did not expect LSU to completely fall apart like they did this year. And to quite a few, Florida was expected to lose 2 of the 3 games between A&M, Georgia, and LSU. And we lost two of those 3 games and won one of them. And if I had to pick one of those to win, it would have been the Georgia game. So that's a solace in a very sad string of losses. But yeah, Austin, good one. Thank you for laying it all out there. Just a quick funny tweet that I wanted to read. I like this name, Fatty. You can follow him at Ryan Fatsinger. Wow, what a name. Anyway, he says, I feel like a kid on Christmas whose stockings are filled with coal and presents or socks and underwear. Huh, wow. And lastly, Marvin Cohen, and I believe we've read your tweets before, so you're a very attentive and loyal fan to the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. So thank you for listening, and thank you for following us on social media. You can follow him at Marv C from GNV. I like that name. And he doesn't type anything. He just posts a little picture. It's a reference from SpongeBob, and since it is a podcast, I'm not going to show you the picture because I can't. Instead, I'm going to play the audio from the reference.
Well, you did it. You took my one chance at happiness and crushed it. Crushed it into little tiny bite-sized pieces. I really had expected better of you people. I guess I'm a loser for that too. Don't bother showing up tomorrow. I'll just tell them you all died in a marching accident. So thanks. Thanks for nothing. You're welcome.
Oh man, that is so apt. That is so fitting. That is so frighteningly fitting for this.
Yeah, and you have Ty Grantham at the end saying, "You're welcome."
Oh, you're welcome. Yep. In the Patrick voice. You're welcome. What do you think about that? We had a SpongeBob reference last week. I said on last week's pod, trying to find a running game is like trying to dig around the bottom of a swimming pool and find SpongeBob. And now we have an audio of Squidward being all grouchy and Patrick going, "You're welcome." Perfect. We should get some sponsorships from SpongeBob or something.
Yeah, and because we're performing commentary on that, we're actually legally allowed to put that. So
we are.
That's good. Yeah, that was a very interesting episode. If you happen to be a fan of SpongeBob, you should watch that one tonight. It might give you a little more solace.
The Bubble Bowl episode, right?
Yeah, exactly. Great memory.
Yeah, I do have a good memory.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is where it comes back to bite me because I'm going to be remembering that Marco Wilson shoe throw until I'm 80.
Oh, man. You're going to be like...
It's going to take dementia to remove that from me.
For 80 years, I'm going to remember.
I don't even think Alzheimer's is going to remove that one from my memory bank. But
no, you're going to... I hate to say this, man, but you and I are going to wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats, be like, "Marco, oh, why did you do that?" Oh,
I cannot believe.
And the most terrifying.
We have said this. We have said this at least 6 times on the podcast. I cannot believe he would be that stupid. I just can't believe it. Oh, so Casey's back. Casey, so what was your tweets?
You know, my friend Patrick Simpson on Twitter had a really good point last night. A lot of telling information from that third down drive outside the shoe throw. 13, which is Donovan Steiner, is taunting someone else yelling at the LSU sideline. The McElwain stench was a contagious loser mentality. The Mullen stench is an unearned arrogance. 100%. That's what it comes down to, boys. We can yell, we can be mad, all we want. But my clock of doubts started ticking about Dan Mullen last night.
Yeah.
The first thing that I'm going to wonder is Marco Wilson going to be on the field when we play Alabama? Is he going to be starting when we play Alabama? Is he going to play in the bowl game?
You shouldn't.
But is he?
Right.
Is he? If he does, Neil, then that clock starts ticking even more and even faster.
And listen, my gripe with Marco Wilson isn't because of one play. I'm not saying he should never play another down at Florida because he threw a shoe. That was idiotic as it gets, but that's not why. I'm saying that because there is a full year of game tape where he does a variety of things that he is not supposed to do, and he is still out there. At what point do we – and I've said this before, we're going to have the conversation at some point that it takes for ineffective starters to get sick with COVID or hurt for backups who are better than the starters to play. And I think the time to have that conversation has just been pushed a lot closer into our near future than originally thought.
I do have a question for our listeners, and this needs to be a poll. Who did it better?
And overcome the adversity on the field.
Or
that inflated how good this team looks. But this team stinks, and it starts here.
Got to get the nod to Dustin there.
my favorite one is go to the next point. And our listeners can't see that Dustin threw off his headset, very Steve Spurrier-like, and stepped out of his chair and left. I mean, we're on a Zoom call. Dustin throws his headset down, gets out of his chair, and says, "Move on to the next point."
Because we're pissed.
Look, the only way we're going to get through last night is our listeners know that Dustin tends to be the cool, calm, and happy-go-lucky type that keeps Neil and I in line. And I only got a small bit of that, recording it on my phone. But Dustin, you are giving Coach Boom a run for his money.
Well, you guys are going to hear the whole thing tomorrow, so you'll judge it for yourselves. We're just reacting to this in real time.
I mean, not to mention that all my notes, all the stats, all the stuff that I write down before every pregame and every postgame, I threw that in the air. I can't find it. It's somewhere. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so we've talked about Marco ad nauseum. Okay, and I think he deserves to be on the receiving end of a lot of criticism because that was an all-time boneheaded move. As his father himself said on Twitter, that was an all-time boneheaded move. But we all know what happened. We're all still infuriated with what happened. So I think instead of hidden gems today, I think what we should do is talk about Todd Grantham and the coaches and where Florida goes from here. So, Dustin, I assume that by this point, even you're on the fire Grantham train, right?
For the right candidate, yeah.
Okay, right. Well, we're assuming we're not going to screw that higher up.
Give me Randy Shannon back over this BS.
All right. So instead, what we're going to talk about today is not should Grantham be fired, because I happen to think that if Mullen does not pull that trigger, it will ultimately cost him his job at Florida. Not today, not tomorrow, not in a year, but it will ultimately stop him from making the Florida program as successful as it could possibly be. But having said that, do we think that Todd Grantham will move on somewhere else? I'm not saying fired, but do you think Dan Mullen will have a new coordinator next year? What do we think, guys?
If Dan Mullen does not have another coordinator for defense next year, I'm not going to be happy. I had to really go through my Rolodex in my mind of podcast safe. And that definitely took me a minute. To answer Neil's question and to keep this short and sweet, I will then know that Dan Mullen is not a championship level coach. If Todd Mullen is on, might as well call him Todd Mullen.
Yeah, because they seem like they're married, so of course it seems like he should have the surname of Mullen. But I will put the odds that Florida has a new defensive coordinator next year at about 3-2. I'll say that there's about a 60% chance that Mullen has a new coordinator on defense, because on one hand, he lost his sanity on him against Kentucky. And typically, when you see that, you don't see the coordinator come back the next year. I mean, the obvious example of that is Nick Saban versus Lane Kiffin when they were blowing out Western Kentucky. I think it was 38-10 or something. And
that's a weird relationship. That's a weird relationship.
But the point being, you typically don't see a head coach coordinator relationship survive a lambasting like that. So there's that. But on the other hand, Dan Mullen's been a head coach in the SEC since 2009. This is his 12th year. He's fired one coordinator. Now, he's fired more than zero, so it would not be the first time. But typically, Mullen doesn't do that. Now, that's not to say that if a DC job opens up somewhere in the NFL, he wouldn't gently push him out the door and say, hey, I know your job is to be in the NFL. Why don't you take that, I don't know what defense sucks in the NFL this year. That's going to fire the coordinator.
The Jaguars are going to have a completely new coaching staff.
Okay, or maybe the Jets when they fire Adam Gase and they hire a new head coach. Send
him to the Giants. Y'all need him up there.
No, the Giants don't want him. The Giants have nothing to do with
Try with the Giants.
No, we're good. We're good with Patrick Graham. The Giants defense has been playing great lately. But anyway, that's beside the point. Maybe Mullen couches it as, hey, Todd, you've been very good for us. We really appreciate you, but I know the NFL is your dream. Go take that job. Or maybe he sits him down and says, you know what, Todd, this isn't working out. Maybe we can give you a nice little buyout, couch this as a mutual parting of ways, shake his hand, nice and cordial, thank you, Todd, and go our separate ways. But in some form or another, this relationship has to end. Because I understand that coaching continuity has been big for Mullen's success so far as a head coach, but at some point, it's going to hurt him. The way I see it, Dan Mullen is a shiny, brand spanking new, giant Mac Tower computer. Beautiful, big-time computer screen. Big-time screen, big-time computer, lots of hard drive, whatever. Great machine. But it comes attached with a virus. That virus is Todd Grantham. And he's refusing to get rid of that virus. And all you got to do is get rid of the virus. And you got a big effing Mac. You got a giant computer on your hand. Just get rid of the virus. It's so easy. Just fix that one thing and fix it, and you're good. Look, we've gotten into all the reasons why Todd Grantham shouldn't be at Florida, but very, very quickly, for those of you who are new to this podcast, we have picked up some new listeners recently. Thank you guys, by the way, for that. For those new listeners, we'll go through them again real quick, okay? Defense can't line up. This is after 10 games in his third year of this scheme. You have guys looking all around, looking to the sidelines, asking each other, well, as the ball is getting snapped, like it's already off the ground and on its way to the quarterback, the guys are turned asking each other, wait, where am I supposed to be? You got that guy? Is this man? Is this zone? You can't have that. This is a complicated defense that his team just doesn't get. They don't get it. For one reason or another, you can blame the players. You can blame Grantham for not simplifying it. As Dustin has said ad nauseum on this podcast, he's got to simplify the defense, just make it hat on a hat defense, gap on gap. It's just not happening. He won't do it. The players can't grasp it for whatever reason, legitimate or not. They don't have it. And we're still doing this thing where we have to look around and literally mid-snap not know what our assignment is. And then there's the play calls. There's lining up in soft zones on a 1st and 10 where they have an obvious running set. There's doing a 3-man zone when they're at the 5-yard line. Who does that? What? No, that's just so basic.
Neil, Todd Grantham to Dan Mullen's office.
I'm serious. This is so frustrating because we have such an elite stockpile of talent there that we've recruited over the last few years. We have so many talented guys on the sideline that aren't playing. Why? Why is Marco Wilson still out there? We've only seen him get torched 610 times. You think the 611th time he's targeted, he'll make a play? How many more times do you have to see the same movie before you finally realize it's not going to work out in your favor? Why is Tyron Hopper not getting more playing time? Why is Jaden Hill not getting more playing time? Why is Chester Kimbrough not getting more playing time? The few times they have been out there, they've done great. Why is Gervin Dexter only in on 2% of the snaps? It's infuriating because the talent is there. We know it's there. We had Bill Sykes on this podcast not long ago. The recruiting analytics guru goes all into the stars and how they matter. We've seen the star rankings. Florida's in the top 10 every year. We know the talent's there. How are we – look, it comes down to this. How –
all right, no, get it out.
Because we refuse to play younger guys because that is just against the religion of Todd Grantham. We have a veteran defense that plays mostly juniors and seniors. That means that they are in their third year. They have played 10 games in their third year of this defensive scheme. How the fuck do you not know what you're doing? It's mind-boggling to me. I don't – and look, we've been pointing this out repeatedly week after week. We did it for Vandy. We did it for Kentucky. We did it for Tennessee. We kept saying this isn't good enough. We're going to get burned if we keep doing this. We didn't. We didn't heed the warning sign, and it cost us. And now we're in a spot where we're forced to break down one of the most aggravating losses of all time, really, and now talking about Florida being relegated to the Cotton Bowl if they're lucky. Because we all know we're not beating Bama. But anyway, well, with that said, it is time for the final word. And then we can bury this mess of a game until it's time for therapy. Yeah, final word time. Dustin?
All right, guys. So we do it every week. We're going to do it again this week. I know that typically these, we're going to go through the play of the game, player of the game, and grades. Typically, these lend themselves to wins for the most part. But hey, let's get right to it. So we're gonna go and start with Casey. So Casey, let's go ahead and get your play of the game.
Honestly, it was that third down stop before the shoe flew. I mean, that was a good third down stop that they had, and that would have completely changed the trajectory of the game. I mean, it was a good stop. So that's my play of the game.
I think it was a dumb call by LSU to throw the ball 7 yards before the sticks, but the play is the shoe throw. It has to be. It has to be. And maybe you could say Cade York's field goal or McPherson's missed field goal, but the shoe throw precipitates all of that. If Marco Wilson is not an idiot, Florida gets the ball back with a chance to win the game. He was an idiot, so that didn't happen. So it's the shoe throw because, by default. Dustin, how about you?
Yeah, Cade York's 57-yard field goal. I mean, that was insane. Everybody that either you're watching the game, wherever you were at, you knew that the game was foggy. It was literally impossible to see halfway down the field. I have no idea how Cade York even saw the goalposts to know whether he had any alignment with it. I actually had to look at the Jumbotron just to know if it went in or not. And he made it. So major props to him. I know it's not the play of the game that we wanted to talk about, but that's it. I mean, he did it. That was the game winner for them. So, guys, let's go ahead and go to player of the game.
Dustin, I'm going to say the player of the game, just like Times Person of the Year is not always for the person that's the best person of the year. Player of the game was Marco Wilson. Not for a good reason, but he was still player of the game because the game was decided by Marco Wilson. So he was the player of the game.
I'll try to inject some positivity into this. I'll go Kadarius Toney. That guy.
Get it, Debbie Downer Schulman. Get it.
That guy. Look, man, win or lose, I do try to recognize some unbelievable efforts by certain guys. And I mean, Kadarius Toney, he played well enough to carry Florida to a win if Marco Wilson wasn't a moron. I mean, he caught 9 balls for 182 yards and a touchdown. And on top of his receiving stats, he also rushed 3 times for 56 yards. So I know we talk about Trask as the Heisman candidate and having Heisman moments and Heismaning us to wins, but Kadarius Toney played well enough to carry us to a win, and would have if Marco Wilson wasn't a dumbass. How about you, Dustin?
I'm gonna have to go with Kyle Trask. He had 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 running. I know he had the 3 turnovers, which were inexcusable, but he also had 474 passing yards, 61% completion. And if it wasn't for some of his better plays down the stretch, Florida wouldn't have even had a chance at winning that game. So I'm going to have to give the player of the game to Kyle Trask, at least from Florida's standpoint. Let's do a segment that everybody's going to enjoy, and it is the grades. Gotta give grades. And Casey, you work in the education industry, and so we'll have you go first once again. Give the defense, the offense, the special teams, and the coaching staff each grades for the game.
Offense a B-. They could have done more. Defense an F. Sorry, LSU should not have even hung around in that game. So defense gets an F. Special teams gets a C just because Evan McPherson should have made that field goal. But Jake Finn had some good punts. Coaching, going to give him an F. Marco Wilson should have been on that field. The play calling was terrible. They didn't motivate their team before the game or at halftime. And they let a team hang around, and they didn't motivate their team to play to win.
Yeah. So offense for me is going to get a C- because Kadarius Toney played an A- game of football. The rest of the offense, aside from Jacob Copeland at times and Kyle Trask at times, didn't do their job. You know, they got 609 yards of offense, but Trask turned it over 3 times. That's, you know, he threw 2 interceptions, including a damaging pick 6. He fumbled the ball away, threw another interception on the shadow of the goal line, which took away 7 more potential Florida points. You can't do that. So C- is, I think, being generous, even though Kyle Trask threw for 474 yards, which is the second highest amount of total yards thrown for in a game by a Gator quarterback, the leader of that statistic being Tim Tebow. Defense gets, as Dustin said in the Texas A&M game, it gets the kind of F that you have to just drop the class and just abandon ship. Like, that was not even a 59 out of 100 where at least you like half knew the material. No, this is like a 2 or a 3 out of 100, where, you know, you get 2 or 3 points for writing your name down, and maybe you get partial credit on one of the 50 questions that are asked. You don't let a team with a true freshman quarterback making his first start, and a team where the last major piece of that 2019 championship team had just opted out in Terrace Marshall, you don't let that team walk onto your home field and put up 418 yards of offense. You just don't do it. And I will say, Ventrell Miller is exempt from that grade. That guy was a beast. He had 16 total tackles. He had 2 for loss. He had a sack. Mohamed Diabate was everywhere too. He had 11 tackles. Of course, he had to because, I mean, bypassing the line was just easy. And James Houston and Kyer Elam, though not worthy of A+ grades, were not F grades either. They were fine, so they are exempt from that grade. Anyway, special teams gets a D.
Got to bring in James Houston.
I do. But he played well. He was all over the field. He was making plays. So Diabate, Houston, and Miller get exemptions from that. Anyway, special teams gets a D because McPherson, as much as we love him, when the game's on the line, you got to produce. And that's a field goal we know he can make because he's made them from further back than that. Jacob Finn was fine, but McPherson, your name's called like that. You're a Grozer Award semifinalist. You got to hit that. You didn't. So that cost him. And then coaching gets another 2 or 3 out of 100 level F because it's all come to a head here. There is no excuse for Marco Wilson to even be sniffing the field at this point in his career, given what he's done in the last 9 games. And there's no reason for our entire defense to be looking around cluelessly wondering what's happening as the ball is being snapped. There's no excuse for these 3-man fronts against obvious rushing situations. No excuse for any of that. So those are my grades. Dustin, how about you?
So as far as my grades for the game, my grades are obviously not going to be too dissimilar from Neil and Casey. Although I'm going to go with defense first. Marco Wilson, what he did completely destroyed the defense in my grade for them. I mean, I thought the defense was below average. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the defense was a 2 or 3% F. I would go more so in the 62 to 63% D-. But if I'm about to fail an exam and then I stand up in the middle of the class and I just start screaming at the top of my lungs some profanities, I'm going to be thrown out of the room. I'm probably going to be arrested, and I'm certainly not going to pass that class, to say the least. And that's exactly what Marco Wilson did. And so for that reason, I can't even give the defense a grade because it's ungradable. I can't. I mean, it's not possible. There were a few bright spots. So I can't say that the defense was putrid. And in fact, I think the defense was just a little bit better in this game than they were in the A&M game. Now A&M is a much better team, but that's just what my eyes saw. And from a X's and O's standpoint, I felt the defense was well below average, but not as bad as you guys said, until, of course, that Marco Wilson play. Offense was okay. Offense was C. I'll give it a C. Obviously, those 3 turnovers were inexcusable, but anytime you're scoring over 30 points, that should be enough to win games. I'm sorry. I know it's 2020 and the Gators are just a different team this year, but scoring 34 points should win games.
We were the better team.
And we should have beat LSU. We had 609 yards of offense. We outgained them by 200 yards. And again, it all came down to turnovers by our Heisman hopeful quarterback, Kyle Trask. And so I can't fail the offense. I'll give it a C minus. Special teams was okay. Allowing the 57-yarder hurt, and the 51-yard miss by McPherson was not only unexpected, but that also hurt even more. Bottom line, it shouldn't have gotten to that point. So I'm going to give special teams a C plus. Not many kickers in the country are expected to make 51-yarders, so I can't say missing that made him below average, but yeah, that's my grade for special teams coaching. Easy grade, easiest grade of the year. Coaching's an F. I love Mullen. I still think he's the right man for the team. But some of his decision making during the game, and even some of the remarks he made to the press afterward, were not only frustrating but invigorating. I was very disappointed that he did not come up front and say, "Hey, we lost that game. We didn't do what we were supposed to do," and at least other coaches that have coached for Florida would have said a little more than Mullen did after that game. And I know it's not always about what you say; it's about how you coach. But coaching gets an F, and that's combined. Offense, defense, special teams, the entire coaching staff gets an F, and it needs to be an A against Alabama, or not only are we going to lose the game, we're in tough doo-doo. We're going to get destroyed. The 2015 the 2016 SEC championship game is going to look like a tiny score compared to what this coming Saturday is going to be. So yeah, those are my grades. Guys, before we wrap this one up, do you guys have anything you want to say or add to the discussion?
I will say one thing that is not calculated to make Gator fans think that what happened was okay, but I do think it is worth taking a look across the state. For as bad as things are right now with that loss, at least we're not where FSU is. And they've won a national title more recently than we have. They're 3-6. They're celebrating like it's 1999 because they beat Duke. We're not there.
And escaped Clemson and Virginia and Florida.
And Florida, right. It's bad. It is bad right now. We are not saying anything to dispute that, but it could be worse. And that's not to say it's okay. I'll repeat that again and again. It is not to say that what happened against LSU was anything even close to resembling acceptable, but it could be worse.
The Gators won't beat Alabama. If they do, it'll be near miraculous.
No. Take out the word near. It will be miraculous. It will be a miracle.
Yes. Yes. If Florida somehow beats Alabama, there's a slim chance they'll be in the playoff.
I don't want to be in the playoff.
The
I
Just
SEC
the
don't
fact
champ,
that you're saying that is hysterical.
the
You know
the
what? You're not wrong, but that I just have to point out
the
how
SEC the
hysterical
SEC
that is.
champion, the SEC champion will be in the playoff this year.
I don't want to be in the playoff.
No,
We don't deserve
no.
it.
No, you're
I don't
right.
want to be there.
No, we're probably going to be in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't even think we are going to be in a New Year's Six Bowl.
Let's
I'll
see
just
where
put
the
that out.
CFP
I don't-
rankings have us Tuesday night. If we're somehow in the top 9, we're probably going to go to the New
I
Year's
don't
Six
think
Bowl.
we're going
I
to
know.
be. I just think we're going to be there.
We'll see.
I know we beat Georgia. Do you think that they rank us behind Georgia?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I
because
agree.
Georgia played. Georgia's playing like a football team that wants to win right now,
They're a better
and
team.
they've got
now.
nothing to play for.
Georgia,
Yeah.
listen, the CFP committee's criteria is they only use head-to-head for teams that they do not assume to be unequivocally better than other teams they're comparing them to. I really think with JT Bennett and with this Florida defense and this Florida coaching staff, Georgia is unequivocally a better football team than Florida. I do. Truth hurts, but I really think so. I really do.
Yep.
I really do.
Now,
100%.
now that wasn't the case earlier in the season, but based on
But
the product that's on the field now,
JT Daniels was not their quarterback earlier in the season. He's only been there
Right.
for what, 2 or 3 weeks?
I think that Florida would have still beat Georgia if
No.
he was the quarterback back then.
Nope, because he's
Georgia
going to hit
was-
those deep passes.
Yeah, exactly. Georgia, I mean, there were multiple plays where, again, Marco Wilson was burned. I was at that game. Marco Wilson,
Yeah.
we were so lucky that it was just slightly overthrown or that the Georgia receivers dropped the ball. I mean, we backed into Atlanta because Georgia was injured. Georgia didn't have the right quarterback, and Kirby Smart made a poor coaching decision not putting in JT Daniels. That's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. We did not beat Tennessee and convince. Name me one convincing win on both sides of the ball that we've had against a complete team this year.
The closest thing is Missouri.
Yep.
And guess
but
what?
Even that, we slogged through that. It took a brawl to get there.
Guess what? Guess we didn't play that game.
Yep. This notion, again, the ticks on the clock that I have for Dan Mullen, this senior privilege thing, that's got to go. That's got to go. Because if you're not playing well, Nick Saban doesn't do it.
Yeah, and I'm tired of these McElwain players playing.
Well,
Hey,
luckily
Houston's a
they're.
McElwain guy. Give my boy Houston a pass.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And Ventrell Miller. And Ventrell Miller.
Look, Houston and Ventrell Miller are exceptions. But the thing about Houston and Ventrell Miller is they did not come to the University of Florida as hotshot athletes. They came as backups. They weren't 5-star. I mean, what were their star rankings? If I remember, they were like high 3 stars.
3 and 4.
Yeah. So Marco Wilson came in as one of the best corners in America, and he's not lived up to that billing ever since we had a coaching change at the a coaching change period. I mean, he's played pretty bad with the exception of his freshman year.
And look, I'm not one to criticize parenting styles.
Oh,
but,
no. Don't do it.
No. I am going to do it because this is a message to players and recruits that, look, respect's earned. Respect is not just given because you have a last name. Respect is not just given because of what your dad does. Respect is not given because automatically of what your brother did at the at Florida before he went to the NFL. Respect's earned. And Marco Wilson, just because your dad says that, you deserve respect, you have to earn respect. I'm sure you're a great guy off the field. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. But for what you do on the field, you have to earn respect. And this year you've done nothing to earn my respect. Period. And again, I'm not one to criticize parenting styles, but I hope recruits see that it doesn't matter how much your dad defends you on Twitter against people and then miraculously gets silent at other times when you're not performing so well.
He's not been silent. He has not been silent today. Go ahead.
I said other times. It was particularly after A&M. That man was quiet. I protected A&M. My point is, you have to earn your respect no matter what your stars are. Kyle Trask is a 2-star, and he was a Heisman finalist until last night. It doesn't matter what your stars are. You play your ass off and become unselfish and become a team player, not a Marco Wilson player, not, oh, gee, I'm going to showboat so I can put it on my Instagram later that I did this, instead of now a picture of a shirtless Ed Orgeron cuddling that shoe. That's a selfish move, and you don't get respect for being selfish.
Look, at the end of the day, we're talking about a game. We're talking about a sport that people play for entertainment. It's not like what he did is going to have a direct correlation on the success of any of our lives. So I say what I'm about to say with that caveat in place. This is just a game that we follow for entertainment. But within the context of that game and my rooting interest as a fan, which, again, not the most important thing in the world, but within that context, I don't think I'm ever going to forgive him for that. I don't. I mean, he can go on. He can live a life. You know, he can meet his girl, or he can marry his girlfriend. He can have kids. He can be a great father. He could even go on to the NFL. That's not likely given this tape this year, but he could. And, you know, he can be successful in whatever he chooses to do.
I mean, he might be a 7th rounder or free agent. I mean, I'll give him that. I will say this. I mean, going back to, I believe it was 2014, and Tevin Westbrook dropped. Dude, I was in that end zone. Yeah, but I still have nightmares about the Tevin Westbrook drop. But at the same time, that was a football play. He made an honest effort, and he dropped the ball. You know, no one considered Tevin Westbrook to be a talented tight end. He was just doing his best, and he messed up. Marco Wilson did something that should have never, ever, ever been done. There's no excuse ever. You know, if you want to rip off your own shoe in the locker room after you beat LSU and throw it, you know, at a defensive lineman's helmet, then do it. I don't care, but not in the game on that play in that high of stakes.
Unforgettably stupid is going to be the legacy that he leaves. I'm sorry. He was great as a freshman. I will always remember, because I have a good memory. I will always remember that PBU.
Yes, you do.
I know. Thank you. I will always remember that PBU with the goal line against Tennessee to save us in 2017. We probably lose that game if he doesn't make that play. But this was unforgivable. I'm sorry. I wish him the best in life going forward. I have nothing but good things to say about him as a person. I've met him several times off the field. Great guy. I can't forgive him for that. I can't. I'm sorry. That was, as you said, Dustin, that was a moment of stupidity. Tevin Westbrook dropping that ball, Evan McPherson missing that field goal, football plays. Guys made honest efforts to do the best they could to make the Florida Gators be the best they could be. Marco Wilson was just acting out of selfishness and idiocy. And it's worth saying only 12 times because that was just absolutely mind-numbing. And with that, I think you guys have listened to us berate him enough. So let's call it a show.
Wrap it up. And here we are. Obviously, this past weekend of Gator football has not been anything remotely what we were hoping for. And again, on the behalf of Casey and Neil, we do want to once again extend our thoughts and prayers to Keontae Johnson and his family. There's clearly things that are way more important than sports, and the livelihood of a young man is one of them. With that said, to each of you that have gone this far and have listened to our show, we sincerely appreciate your time and being with us. We also want to remind you that as we're a young but growing podcast, it's very important that you leave a like and a comment and a 5-star review on iTunes. So once again, we just want to say this. We hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and much more subdued than normal. I do want to say, go Gators.
In all kinds of weather, we will all stick together. The sun will rise tomorrow and every day after that. It will still be great to be a Florida Gator. We did beat Georgia. We did beat Tennessee. We are in a much better place than FSU is right now. It is not particularly great to be a Florida Gator compared to some other points of the year, but it is always great to be a Florida Gator. And we're gonna have quite an offseason ahead of us, guys. We're gonna see exactly where this program is with Dan Mullen. We're gonna see what kind of decisions he makes, and we're gonna see exactly what he's made of as a head coach. But all we can do until then is just keep rooting for the Gators and hoping and praying he does the best.
Well, yeah, hey, we'll talk more about this on Wednesday, but so many teams in the country would so love to have Bama. Everyone says we want Bama. Well, hey, the Florida Gators have Bama. And, the Gators got to put this one behind them and move forward. And we'll talk more about it on Wednesday. All right, guys. Again, go Gators. We'll see you again later.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.